Day 7 of Green Bay Packers training camp is now officially in the books, so let's go over all the key takeaways and notes from today's practice. It was yet another padded day of practice. The Packers are back at it tomorrow, all before family night this coming Saturday. Let's get right into it and first announce a roster move that the Packers made yesterday. So the Packers have signed linebacker Jared Bartlett, and a corresponding move was releasing safety Kazir Brown, also known as Bugs Brown, a player a lot of people were intrigued about before this offseason, before training camp. Didn't seem to make too many plays during training camp, and the Packers decide to add another linebacker into this room. Bartlett, a 6'2", 238-pound linebacker, an undrafted free agent out of West Virginia, originally signed with the New York Jets as an undrafted free agent on May 9th. At West Virginia, he played in 61 games, recorded 204 tackles, 21.5 sacks, and 32.5 tackles for loss. Another linebacker into this room to potentially make the practice squad as a special team player. The Packers have Jamon Johnson, also Christian Welch, kind of fighting all out for that same spot. In my opinion, the first, I think 5 linebackers are pretty locked down for this roster right now of Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, Isaiah McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, and Isaiah Simmons. I doubt the Packers keep 6, but they might just want to have a little bit of insurance in terms of getting linebackers on this practice squad to potentially have more special teamers on game day call-ups. Now let's go over the injury news from today's practice. We got a promising update about Marshawn Lloyd this morning, and Matt LaFleur had some insight on it, and he said it's not going to be a long-term deal, but I wouldn't anticipate him this week. So that's great to hear, right? It's not a long-term thing, maybe a week or 2 injury here, and we might still end up seeing Marshawn Lloyd in all 3 preseason games. That would be great. I just want to see this guy on the field. I want to see him in a game active, right? And showcasing what his ability is to potentially carve out a running back number 2 spot. He was practicing very well up until that injury. So luckily just a small groin pull, nothing major. That's great news to hear. Also, a handful of players did return to practice today after missing practice on Tuesday. Dontavian Wicks returned from his calf injury, although he only went through warmups, didn't participate in teams, was riding the bike on the sideline. But 2 players that did return to practice and did participate in teams, Aaron Banks was one of them, returned from that back injury. We saw him return earlier this week, but then step out of practice on Tuesday, go back into the Don Hutton Center. He was back in action during teams 11v11s at left guard. So great to see that. Back injuries can definitely linger, so you want to lean on the side of caution with these sort of things. And Savion Williams returned from his concussion. Kind of a similar situation where he returned on Sunday, practiced Monday, I believe, and then was kind of out Tuesday. We saw him back at practice today wearing a Guardian cap, just an added layer of protection for that concussion that he did suffer. Going over starters during 11v11s in today's practice, the 2 wide receivers were Matthew Golden and Romeo Doubs. I think this is the 4th straight day during 11v11s. Matthew Golden's been getting reps with the first team. He's been phenomenal this camp thus far. The offensive line to start was Rasheed Walker, Aaron Banks, Elton Jenkins, Sean Ryan, and Zach Tom. But very soon after, the Packers plugged Jordan Morgan in at left tackle and pretty much kept him there the entire practice. Stenovich talked about how now that Aaron Banks and Elton Jenkins are fully able to practice, they don't have to worry about right guard as much because they just have Sean Ryan there. Jacob Monk can plug in. Now they're going to start to have that open competition they've kept talking about at left tackle between Rasheed Walker and Jordan Morgan, which he saw a ton of snaps at left tackle today, and it makes sense. The Packers do view him as a future left tackle, and it's the last year of Rasheed Walker under his deal, and I don't think he'll be re-signed, so the Packers have to figure out this left tackle position for the future in 2026. Also, we saw Anthony Belton get some right tackle reps today. The defense was the same as it's been for pretty much the past couple of weeks. Also, some other news in terms of players that didn't participate in 11v11s. Jaden Reed ended up not participating in 11v11s and working on the bikes on the sideline with Dontavian Wicks. Not really sure what that is, something to keep an eye on. Another receiver that hopped out of practice as well was Sam Brown, the undrafted free agent out of Miami. Now let's go over all the takeaways from day 7 of Green Bay Packers training camp. They opened up with 1v1s. I'm not going to go over them them just because I released all the meaningful 1v1 videos on my highlight video I just released before this. So if you want to go watch all the 1v1 clips, shout out Dalton for providing those. Go watch that on the video before. As for the team sessions, it was yet another good day for Lucas Van Ness. I feel like I've said this 3 straight videos now. He's been stacking good practices since the pads have came on. He had more good reps versus Jordan Morgan at left tackle. We saw earlier in camp him beating Rasheed Walker a ton. Is an actual year 3 jump coming? That would do so much for this defensive line, for this pass rush group, if someone like Lucas Van Ness just took that next jump where we've kind of all been expecting him to. We just haven't seen it in the first 2 seasons, and he hasn't lived up to that first round hype, so hopefully he can here in year 3. Also, a very nice practice by Luke Musgrave today. Man, if this guy can also take a year 3 jump, I mean, this offense can be very, very dangerous with not only having Tucker Kraft as a tight end weapon, but Luke Musgrave, and Love found him multiple times in today's practice, and he continues to threaten vertically, which is great to have as a tight end to create those mismatches against linebackers, against safeties, and he had a very nice day of practice today. Also, the interior offensive line finally started to open up some running lanes for these running backs. All of camp, they haven't done a great job at it, but also Aaron Banks and Elton Jenkins haven't practiced much in team sessions, so that makes sense, right? Now that these guys are back, this interior, this offensive line starting to really open up these run lanes, so great to see that. That's why the Packers brought in Aaron Banks at left guard and moved Elton Jenkins to center to, sturdy up the interior, make it a more powerful interior offensive line. Romeo Doubs also had a really nice day of practice. He had an awesome touchdown catch over Javon Buller, just a terrific throw by Jordan Love. This one of those plays that I hope the Packers end up releasing over there on their X account. Baron Sorrell had a nice tackle for loss today on Israel Abanikanda. A lot of people have been commenting, what about Baron Sorrell? And I've talked about him a few times in videos here or there. It seems like every day of practice, I hear his name called at least once, whether it's a would-be sack, a nice pressure, or a tackle for loss. Definitely carving out that rotational edge rusher role with the Green Bay Packers. And so far, I think he's had a nice start to camp. Would have loved to see Colin Oliver, but obviously he's still out on PUP. And the other rotational guys, Kingsley Enagbare, Brenton Cox Jr., they're all fighting for these rotational spots at edge. And I think Sorrell has had a good start to camp thus far. Another rookie that's had a good start to camp and had a really nice day today was defensive tackle Warren Brinson out of Georgia. Both of the Georgia defensive tackles have been the forefront of the attention on the defensive line during camp. Warren Brinson was good in run defense today, good against the pass, got some nice push down low, moving some of the linemen, resetting the line of scrimmage. Really nice day by Warren Brinson. I think both of these Georgia defensive tackles do end up making the roster and potentially, getting some snaps here in year 1. Another defensive lineman that had a nice day was Devontae Wyatt. Haven't heard much from him during this camp, and now that the pads are on, we're going to start to hear more of the offensive and defensive linemen, and Devontae Wyatt is poised to become a full-time starting 3-tech defensive tackle on this defensive line for the first time in his career, now that the Packers seemingly putting Kenny Clark at nose tackle and Devontae Wyatt at 3-tech and getting the snaps that he deserves. I feel like the past couple of seasons, Wyatt has gotten not nearly enough snaps than he deserves, so hoping for a big year 4 here as well for Devontae Wyatt. Carrington Valentine had yet another interception in today's camp. I think that's his 3rd interception of camp, 3rd on Malik Willis. Now, the first 2 weren't Willis's fault. I believe it was a tipped pass, the first one. The second one was a receiver falling down on his route. This one was on Willis. It was also just a tremendous play by Carrington Valentine. He left his man in man coverage to anticipate the throw, the seam throw to Luke Musgrave up the middle of the field, and jumped that route. He's been a ball hawk this camp and has really stepped up as a rotational cornerback. Right now, obviously, Nixon and Hobbs are the starters, but he's played like a starter thus far in camp. Overall, the defense went 3-0 in the 2-minute drill today. That's a reoccurring theme. I feel like the defense has done a really, really good job in these 2-minute drills. On occasion, the first team, second team offense, they move the ball, and they did move the ball, but it didn't end up in a score. So really nice job by the defense today. They yet again, quote unquote, won practice. And the final note I have is Brandon McManus finally missed a kick, right? He was 25 for 25 during training camp thus far, and up until today, hasn't missed a kick since signing that 3-year extension. Well, he finally missed a kick, showing that he is still human. Now he is 28 of 29. for training camp so far. So those are all the key notes and takeaways I have from today's Packers practice, day 7 of training camp. Again, they're back at it tomorrow, then family night on Saturday. So still a lot of action to wrap up this week. Really appreciate you guys coming by to the channel. Leave a like down below if you did like the video. Also, go click subscribe if you haven't already to stay in the loop with everything Green Bay Packers during this offseason, training camp, into preseason, into the regular season. Really appreciate you guys. I'll catch you on the next one, and as always, go Pack Go.